Report 1. My name is Thomas Reed, and I swear on everything sacred that what I'm about to tell you truly happened. It was a cold autumn night in 1992 in Pluckley, the small village in the heart of Kent, England, known by many as the most haunted in the country. I was a farmer, born and raised on that land, used to the sounds of the fields, the wind cutting through the wheat, the distant crows calling. But that night was different. Something changed, something that still makes me tremble every time I think about it. I was on my way home after checking the barn, and it was already past 10 o'clock. The moon was full, but heavy clouds swallowed its light. The path I had walked all my life, a dirt trail that winds past St. Nicholas Church, looked wrong. The air was heavy, as if even the wind was afraid to move. My footsteps echoed too loud, and a weight pressed against my chest. The unshakable feeling that something was watching me. Then came the cold. Not winter cold, not the kind you brace yourself for. This was different. A chill that crawled over my skin, crept up my spine, and burrowed into my bones. My breath turned white, though the night wasn't freezing. I froze in place, gripping my flashlight tight, my heart pounding like a drum. And then I saw her. Out in the field, maybe 20 meters from the path, stood a woman. Tall, slender, draped in a long white gown that seemed to float, as if it never touched the earth. The White Lady, as they call her. Her face, God, I can't describe it. The shadows hid it, but I felt her eyes burning into me. The world fell silent except for a faint whisper, carried on the wind. So soft, it barely existed. Thomas, it said. But how could she know my name? I never told anyone about this. My legs shook, but I couldn't move. The flashlight in my hand began to flicker, and I swear the beam bent around her, as if the light itself was being swallowed. The whisper grew louder, words I couldn't understand, spoken in some ancient, guttural tongue that made my stomach churn. Then she began to move, not walking, but gliding, like the ground didn't exist beneath her. Each step closer brought a deeper cold, the kind that felt like it was tearing my soul apart. I wanted to run, to scream, but my voice was locked in my throat. When she was just a few feet away, the wind died completely. The silence was so absolute, I could hear my own blood rushing through my veins. Then she stopped. Her face, hidden until then, seemed to form for the briefest moment. Hollow, empty eyes, and a mouth opening into a silent scream. My flashlight went dead, and the last thing I saw was the white of her gown glowing in the dark, like it was woven from moonlight itself. I don't know how I got home. All I know is I woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat. The front door wide open. My wife Ellen told me I stumbled in pale as a corpse, muttering nonsense. I never walked that trail at night again. They say the White Lady is the ghost of a woman from the 19th century. Murdered or abandoned, no one knows for sure. But I know what I saw. And I know she's still out there, waiting, whispering names into the dark. If you ever go to Pluckley, avoid the fields near the church. Because if she calls you by name, you may never come back to tell the story. Report 2. My name is Margaret Hale, and what I'm about to tell you happened to me and my fiancé, James, on a September night in 1954. in Pawleys Island, South Carolina. I was young, fresh out of college, and we had gone to spend the weekend at his parents' beach house, tucked away in a rural stretch near the coast. Those winding roads, lined with swamps and oak trees draped in Spanish moss, always gave me chills. But that night changed my life forever. It was around 8 o'clock and the sky was heavy, dark clouds rolling across the horizon, warning of an oncoming storm. We decided to drive back after having dinner in town. The coastal road, a narrow strip of asphalt flanked by tall reeds and marshes, was deserted. James drove, and I stared out the window, breathing in the damp, salty air. Suddenly, the radio began to hiss, crackling with bursts of static, almost like someone was trying to speak through it. James laughed, saying it was just interference, but a chill ran through me, the air inside the car turning thick, suffocating. And then I saw him. At the side of the road, caught in the faint glow of our headlights, stood a man. He wore a long gray cloak that swayed even though there was no wind. His figure was tall but hunched, as if he carried an unbearable weight. "James, look," I cried, pointing ahead. He slowed down, frowning. "What's someone doing out here at this hour?" he muttered, but the closer we got, the stranger it became. The man didn't move. He just stood there, head bowed, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. My breath caught when I realized the headlights didn't illuminate him properly. It was as if the darkness swallowed him, as if he was made of shadow itself. James stopped the car about 30 feet away, and I clutched his arm, my heart racing. "Don't get out, James. Please," I begged. But stubborn as ever, he opened the door and called out, "Hey, do you need help?" Silence. A silence so deep that even the crickets in the marsh seemed to vanish. Then the man raised his head. I swear I saw his eyes, or the absence of them. Empty sockets, black voids, like bottomless pits. My skin crawled, and an icy chill flooded the car, as if winter itself had seeped inside. The radio shrieked with static, and buried in the noise came a low moan, a mournful wail that made my teeth ache. The gray man lifted his arm and pointed toward the horizon, where lightning split the sky. "Go, now," he said, in a voice that was not human, hoarse, broken, as if it rose from the depths of the sea. James slammed the door and pressed the accelerator, but the car sputtered, choking, as if held back by some unseen force. I glanced in the mirror, and he was closer now, only a few feet from the bumper, gliding without touching the ground. His cloak unraveled like strands of smoke, and the air reeked of salt and rot. I screamed, and James, eyes wide with terror, finally forced the engine to roar. We shot down the road, but out of the corner of my eye, I could still see him, chasing us without moving, always keeping pace, a gray shadow stitched to the storm. When we reached the house, the engine died on its own. Minutes later, the storm broke, winds rattling the windows, thunder tearing the night apart. I didn't sleep, haunted by the sound of that moan replaying in my mind. Days later, we heard the stories from locals. The gray man appears before great storms, the spirit of a young man who drowned in the 19th century while trying to save his fiancée from the waves. They say he warns the living to flee, but I know he wasn't just warning us. He wanted me to feel his death, the weight, the despair, the ocean filling his lungs. To this day, I never drive that road again. And sometimes, when a storm approaches, I feel that same cold creeping over me. and I hear a moan rising from the sea. Report 3. My name is William Carter, and what I experienced on that winter's night in 1978 in Borley, Essex, still makes me wake, drenched in cold sweat. I was a farmer, born and raised on that quiet land, where the silence of the fields was broken only by the wind or the lowing of cattle. Borley had always carried a reputation for being haunted because of the old Borley Rectory, but I never paid much attention to ghost stories. Not until that night. Not until the coach. It was a freezing December night, the sky so dark it seemed to swallow the stars. I had stayed out late, repairing a broken fence on a remote corner of my property, near a dirt track that cut through the fields. The cold bit into my fingers, and a creeping mist clung to the ground, as though the earth itself was breathing. I carried my oil lantern, its glow throwing twisted shadows against the gnarled trees around me. That's when I heard it, a sound of hooves. Clear, steady, rhythmic, like horses galloping, though not a single horse was in sight. My heart lurched, and I raised the lantern higher, straining to see through the darkness. The sound grew louder, closer, joined by a creaking groan, like wooden wheels grinding against old axles. I knew that trail well. No wagon used it, certainly not at that hour. The air grew heavy, and a strange odor, like wet earth mixed with rot, filled my nose. Then I saw it. Emerging from the fog was a black coach, drawn by two skeletal horses that looked as though they had been dragged from the grave itself. Their eyes were white and empty, their manes drifting like smoke, unraveling into the night air. And the worst of it? There was no driver. The seat was empty, yet the reins jerked and moved as though pulled by invisible hands. I stood frozen, my lantern shaking in my grip. The coach didn't touch the ground. It hovered, gliding along the trail. As it approached, I heard a wail. Faint at first, then rising into a shriek so sharp it pierced my skull. A cry that sounded like a woman sobbing and laughing at once. My blood turned to ice. I knew the stories. They said a nun was murdered there in the 17th century near Borley Rectory, and that her cursed soul haunted the Phantom Coach. But hearing legends is one thing, seeing them is another. The coach passed within yards of me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw someone inside. A woman. Her face pale as bone, eyes hollow and dark, her mouth stretched in a silent scream. Her torn nun's habit was stained red, and her skeletal hands reached toward me, as if to drag me inside. My lantern died in an instant, plunging everything into black. The pounding of hooves thundered in my ears, and her scream split my mind like a blade. I collapsed to my knees, hands clamped over my ears. I don't know how long I remained there. When the sound stopped, the silence was worse than the noise. I lifted my head, and the coach was gone, vanished as though it had never existed. But the stench of decay still lingered, and the ground where it had passed was coated in a thin layer of ice, glistening beneath the pale light of the moon as it broke through the clouds. I stumbled home, tripping over roots, certain something was following me, whispering my name through the darkness. I reached my house and bolted the door, trembling, pale as death. My wife, Eliza, swore I looked as though I had stared into the grave itself. I never set foot on that trail after dark again. The elders of Borley say the Phantom Coach appears to those who wander into the wrong place at the wrong time, carrying the restless spirit of that nun who never found peace. I don't know what she wanted from me, but sometimes when the wind howls across the fields, I still hear the pounding of hooves and the echo of that scream that never leaves my head.